The morning started like any other cheap instant coffee and chipped mugs, my father buried in the sports section, and the faint smell of burnt toast that my mother swore wasn't her fault. I was halfway through spreading peanut butter when Emily cleared her throat. "I need to talk to you about something important." I glanced up. Emily never used words like important unless it was about herself. She was already dressed for the day, high-waisted jeans, a white crop top, hair perfectly curled, makeup glowing like she'd stepped out of an ad. "Okay," I said cautiously. She leaned against the counter like she was about to pitch a business plan on Shark Tank. "You should give me your college fund." The knife froze in my hand. "What?" "You heard me," she said, flipping her hair like this was perfectly reasonable. "Grandma set up that account for you when you were little, right? Well, I need it more. College is a waste of time for me. I'm ready to start my influencer career, travel, brand deals, fashion hauls. This is my shot." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I genuinely thought she was joking. "Emily, that money is for my tuition. I start next semester." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might strain something. "You're so selfish. I'm thinking about the whole family here. If I get big, that's exposure for all of us. Imagine having a famous sister connections, opportunities. Don't you care about anyone but yourself?" I glanced at my parents, waiting for them to step in and tell her how ridiculous she sounded. Instead, Mom set down her mug and said, "Maybe Emily has a point. She's always had a spark. You've always been practical. You'll figure out another way to pay for school." My father, without looking up from the paper, mumbled, "She's got the personality for it. Might be her big break." It was like they had all conspired to see how far they could push me before I snapped. "Grandma worked her whole life for that fund," I said, my voice shaking. "She wanted me to get an education, not fund your shopping sprees and vacations." Emily folded her arms. "Wow, so you think I can't succeed? You've always been jealous of me." The word jealous hit me like a slap. I wasn't jealous, I was exhausted. Exhausted from always being the one expected to give, to bend, to step aside. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the conversation over and over. And somewhere between midnight and sunrise, I made my decision. I was done. By the next morning, I'd packed the essentials into my old duffel bag. A week's worth of clothes, my laptop, my grandmother's quilt, and the photo of her and me from my 10th birthday, her arm around me, her smile so wide you could feel it. That picture was my anchor. Emily was sprawled across the couch when I came downstairs, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. "Where are you going?" she asked, not looking up. "Somewhere I can think," I said, adjusting the strap on my bag. She smirked, still glued to her feed. "Fine, but don't act all high and mighty when I'm famous and you're stuck working at some dead-end job. You'll regret not being on my team." I wanted to tell her fame wasn't a team sport, that she'd never even offered me a place in her so-called dream until she needed my money, but I bit my tongue. Mom came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "If you're leaving, don't expect us to chase after you. You're the one walking away." Something inside me cracked, not loudly, but in that quiet, irreversible way glass does when the pressure is just right. "I'm not asking anyone to chase me," I said. "I'm just done being somewhere I'm not wanted unless I'm giving something." Dad finally looked up from his newspaper, his brow furrowing, not out of concern, but as if I was disturbing his morning. "Don't make this more dramatic than it needs to be. Your sister needs help right now. You'll get over this." The silence that followed was heavy. Emily let out a little snort, like I was the one being ridiculous. So I turned, walked out the door, and didn't look back. The first few nights, I stayed with my friend Hannah in her tiny apartment above a laundromat. She didn't ask for details, just handed me a blanket and said, "You're safe here." That was all I needed to hear. By the end of the week, I'd found a place of my own. It was nothing glamorous, peeling wallpaper in the kitchen, a bathroom sink that dripped no matter how tightly you turned the handle, but it was mine. I threw myself into work and school. My scholarship covered part of my tuition. The rest came from two part-time jobs, one at a bookstore, the other running social media for a small bakery. The hours were long, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. The silence from my parents was loud. They didn't call, they didn't text. I found out later from a distant cousin that they'd told everyone I was going through a phase. Emily posted vague tweets like, "Some people just can't be happy for you, and it's sad when family betrays you." I ignored them. At least, I tried to. But at night, lying on my secondhand mattress, I would remember my mother's voice telling me not to expect anyone to chase me. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was free. The truth, I was free, but I was also alone. Time has a strange way of stretching and folding in on itself. The first year after leaving felt like running uphill in a Storm College classes during the day, bookstore shifts in the afternoon, bakery work on weekends. My hands always smelled faintly of espresso and paperbacks. I learned to budget down to the penny, to cook 3 days worth of meals in one go, to fix a leaky faucet with nothing but duct tape and YouTube tutorials. Some nights I would sit at my tiny kitchen table with the quilt from Grandma wrapped around my shoulders, eating microwave noodles and thinking, I did this. I built this for me. By the time I graduated, I'd landed a marketing job at a mid-sized firm. Not glamorous, but stable. I bought a used car white, dent in the back bumper, and for the first time in my life, I could afford to replace a pair of shoes because I wanted to, not because I had no choice. Emily's life, from what little I saw, was a carousel of short-lived highs and long, messy lows. Her Instagram grew to about 30,000 followers, but half of them came from giveaway loops and the other half from follow-for-follow trades. Her captions read like motivational posters: "Chase your dreams. Haters fuel my fire. Manifesting my empire." She posted endless coffee shop selfies, travel pics from 2-day budget getaways, and product promotions for brands I'd never heard of. I knew the look in her eyes forced, like she was trying to convince herself she was already living the dream. Every few months, I'd get a late-night DM from her. "Do you ever regret not helping me? You could have been part of this. Families should support each other no matter what." I never answered. It was 2.5 years after I had left when the first real warning sign came. A friend from college sent me a screenshot. It was a photo of me taken years ago, back when I still lived at home, standing in our old kitchen with messy hair, wearing one of Dad's oversized sweatshirts. The caption read, "Some people would rather see you fail than lift you up." Imagine having a sister who sabotages you. She didn't use my name, but she didn't have to. Anyone who knew us could connect the dots. Comments poured in. "Wow, your sister sounds toxic. Cut her off, girl. You don't need that energy. Family can be the worst haters." My stomach twisted. I blocked her on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter that same night. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Blocking her should have been the end. It was supposed to cut off the supply, starve her of the attention she thrived on. Instead, it lit a fuse. The first email came a week later. No subject line, just 3 words: "I see you." It came from an address I didn't recognize, but the lowercase style, the lack of punctuation, it was hers. I deleted it without replying. Then came another. "We're not done." Another: "This won't end until you make it right." They arrived at random times: 2 a.m., 9:37 a.m., once during my lunch break. I started deleting them unopened, but the unease stuck with me. Then she called my office. My coworker Jasmine leaned over my cubicle one morning. "Hey, some girl called asking for you." Wouldn't leave her name, just kept saying she knew you. I tried to laugh it off, but my chest felt tight. Weird. Probably a wrong number. 2 days later, my boss stopped by. "Someone's been calling the front desk asking about your schedule," she said, her voice tight. "You okay?" I nodded, lying. "Yeah, just a misunderstanding." The sightings started after that. Once I was walking out of my apartment building on a Saturday morning when I saw her across the street. She had her phone out, angled slightly toward me, pretending to check messages, but obviously recording. I froze. She just smiled, small, smug, and walked away. Another time, I was at the cafe I always went to after work. I looked up from my laptop and spotted her at the far corner table, stirring a coffee she wasn't drinking. She didn't say a word, didn't approach, just sat there for 20 minutes before leaving. I called my mother, half hoping she'd finally understand. Mom, Emily's following me. She's calling my work. She's showing up where I am. Instead of concern, I got a sigh. She's your sister. She probably just misses you. Can you blame her? You've cut her out for years. She's stalking me, I said flatly. You're exaggerating, Mom replied. You've always been too sensitive. Something in my chest went cold. That was the last time I told my parents anything about Emily. The thing about being stalked is that it's not just about the moments you see them, it's the moments you don't. You start checking over your shoulder in parking lots. You choose different routes home. You wonder if they're in the store aisle behind you, in the crowd at the bus stop, at the corner of every shadow. For months, she was just a presence in the periphery, but I should have known she was working towards something bigger. And she was. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday mornings were always painfully quiet at the office, just the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights and the click of keyboards. I was in a Zoom meeting, halfway through explaining a campaign strategy, when my phone started vibrating. At first, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. I muted myself, glanced down, and felt my stomach twist. 10 notifications from Instagram. Except, I hadn't had an account in over a year. These were message previews from friends and coworkers. Are you seeing this? Check Emily's live right now. She tagged your boss. I should have shut my phone off. I should have pretended it wasn't happening. But some morbid part of me tapped the link. Emily's face filled the screen, puffy eyes, mascara streaks, lips trembling. She was sitting on the floor of her bedroom, her ring light glowing far too bright for the dark mood she was projecting. In her hand was a small razor blade. This, she said to the camera, her voice raw, is what my sister caused me to do. My blood went cold. She ruined my life, she continued, sniffling for effect. She abandoned me when I needed her most. She stole my dreams, my future. She's always been jealous of me. And now I can't take it anymore. My name was in the patient tagged alongside my workplace, my college alumni page, and several of my close friends. Comments poured in so fast the screen blurred. OMG, don't do it. What's wrong with your sister? She sounds like a monster. I'd cut my family off too. I couldn't breathe. Then she pressed the blade to her arm. My voice caught in my throat. Emily, no. She dragged it across her skin. The cut was shallow, but blood bloomed immediately. The chat exploded. People were screaming in all caps for her to stop. Others were blaming me. And then, without warning, the feed cut to black. I was already on my feet, my headset tossed onto my desk. My boss called my name, but I barely heard her. I drove to the hospital without even grabbing my coat. When I arrived, I found my parents in the waiting room. Mom was crying, but when she saw me, her expression hardened like cooling wax. Dad stood, his jaw tight. This is your fault, he hissed before I could say a word. She wouldn't have done this if you had just been a decent sister. I stared at him, stunned. Are you serious right now? She went live. She tagged my boss. She's been stalking me for months. Enough, Mom snapped. Do you think you're the victim here? Your sister is lying in a hospital bed because of you. I felt something inside me harden in that moment. It was the same crack I'd felt the day I left home, only now. It shattered completely. Without another word, I turned and walked out. I didn't care if they called me cold. I didn't care if they hated me. Because after what Emily had just done, I knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to stop unless I made her. By the next morning, the video wasn't just a live stream, it was everywhere. Someone had screen recorded it and uploaded it to TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, even Reddit. Gossip accounts with tens of thousands of followers were reposting it under titles like, Sister Betrays Influencer This is the result. My name was in the hashtags. My workplace was mentioned in the captions. Every time I refreshed my phone, there were new messages. Some from friends checking in, others from strangers calling me a monster. I hope you're proud of yourself. You drove her to this. Family should always support family. I muted every notification, but it didn't matter. People started emailing my work. That afternoon, my boss called me into her office. She closed the door, her expression somewhere between concerned and calculating. I'm aware of what's circulating online, and she began. I want to make it clear we're not firing you. But this is bad publicity, and clients are asking questions. Heat rushed to my face. It's not true. She's been harassing me for years. She stalked me. This is just her trying to destroy me because I cut her off. I believe you, my boss said, lowering her voice. But the internet doesn't care about the truth. It cares about drama. And right now, you're in the middle of a public one. The meeting ended with a warning. Keep a low profile, don't engage, let it die down. I left work feeling like I'd been hollowed out. That night, I opened my laptop and started compiling everything. Every email, every anonymous message, every time she'd shown up uninvited. I dug up the screenshot from when she'd posted that old photo of me. It was more than a pattern, it was a case. 2 days later, I walked into a lawyer's office. He was older, with silver hair, and the kind of calm voice that made you feel like there was a way out, even if you couldn't see it yet. I slid the stack of evidence across his desk. She went live on Instagram, cut herself, and told thousands of people I caused it, I said, my voice shaking. She's been harassing me for years. I want it to stop. Permanently. He skimmed the papers, then looked at me over the rim of his glasses. We can file for a restraining order, and if she keeps this up after that, we move to civil harassment charges. But you need to be ready. Family cases get ugly. I'm already an ugly, I said. I just want my life back. When I left his office, I didn't feel relief, not yet. But for the first time in years, I felt something close to power. Emily had been playing her game for too long. Now, I was finally changing the rules. 2 months later, the restraining order was official. The judge's voice was steady, clinical, as he read out the terms. Emily was forbidden from contacting me directly or indirectly. No calls, no emails, no messages through other people. No posts that mentioned me by name. Violating it would mean immediate legal consequences. She wasn't in the courtroom. Her lawyer stood in her place, stone-faced, as if this was just another Tuesday on the docket. I walked out with the paperwork in my hand, my pulse pounding like I'd just run a marathon. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival. The silence was strange at first. No late-night emails, no sightings across the street, no strange calls to my office. For the first few weeks, I kept expecting to see her name flash on my phone or her face appear in a crowd. But gradually, that constant low hum of fear began to fade. My parents called once. Mom's voice was clipped, like she was forcing herself to be polite. You really went through with it, she said. I had to, I replied. You're heartless, she snapped. Family is family, no matter what. No, I said quietly. Family is supposed to love you, not destroy you. I hung up before she could answer. They never called again. I started reclaiming my life in small ways. I went back to the cafe where I'd once spotted Emily watching me, and for the first time in years, I stayed until closing without glancing over my shoulder. I reconnected with friends I distanced myself from out of fear they'd get pulled into her drama. I said yes to work projects I'd been too distracted to focus on before. I wasn't healed. Some scars don't fade, they just stop aching as much. There were still nights I woke up from dreams where she was banging on my door or mornings where I hesitated to open my email. But each time I reminded myself, she can't reach me anymore. Once, about 6 months later, I stumbled across her profile online. It was purely by accident, a tagged photo on someone else's page. She was still posting, still selling an image of herself that didn't match reality. I didn't click. I didn't linger. I just kept scrolling. People like to say blood is thicker than water, but they forget the full phrase. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. I'd chosen my own covenant now, a life built on boundaries, on people who respected them, on peace that wasn't constantly under attack. If that meant being the villain in her story, so be it. I'd rather be her villain than her victim. If you're reading this, maybe you've been where I was pulled into the chaos of someone who shares your blood, but not your respect. Maybe you've been told that family means you forgive everything, no matter how much it costs you. I used to believe that too. Here's the truth no one wanted to tell me. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most will hide behind the title of family because they know it's the one thing you'll hesitate to walk away from. They'll push your boundaries, take your kindness for granted, and call you cruel when you finally say enough. But enough isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. I learned that the hard way. I spent years trying to fix something that wasn't broken, it was rotten. I thought if I explained myself better, if I showed more patience, if I sacrificed a little more of myself, things would change. They didn't. They only got worse. It took me losing almost everything: my safety, my peace of mind, my trust in the people who were supposed to protect me, to realize the only person who could protect me was me. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this: you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose your own family. And you are allowed to be the villain in someone else's story if it means you get to be the hero in your own.